Hawaii is emptying out. This is the story of a place that's losing the people who made it. The most beautiful corner of the United States, the one destination almost everyone keeps on a list of places to see before they die. And right now, quietly, it's emptying out. There are no abandoned factories here, no rusting steel mills, no boarded up main streets, none of the obvious wreckage that marks a dying city on the mainland. The beaches are still full, the hotels are still booked solid, and from the window of a plane coming in low over the water, nothing looks wrong at all. That's exactly what makes Hawaii different from every other place in decline. This isn't somewhere people are fleeing because it collapsed. It's somewhere they're leaving because they can no longer afford to stay in paradise. The numbers are small, and that's what makes them easy to miss. In the most recent year on record, Hawaii lost a net total of just over 2,000 residents, which sounds like nothing in a state of more than 1.5 million people. But look closer. In that same stretch, only 2 places in the entire country lost a larger share of their population, and they were Vermont and Puerto Rico. Nearly 9,000 people moved off the islands to another state in a single year, and since the last full census, the population has shrunk by more than 20,000. On Oahu, the island that holds Honolulu and most of the state's people, the count quietly slipped below 1 million and hasn't fully recovered. On the Big Island, something stranger is happening, something the experts did not expect for another 10 years. For the first time, more people are dying there each year than are being born. State economists had predicted that kind of decline would not reach Hawaii until somewhere around the mid-2030s, which meant that on Hawaii Island, the future arrived early. So where do all these people go? Most of them land in California, Washington, and Texas. But the destination that tells you the most about what's really happening sits in the middle of the desert, about as far from an ocean as you can get. Las Vegas. So many Hawaiians have resettled there over the decades that the people back home gave it a name. They call it the Ninth Island. What started as a trickle, with families chasing cheaper rent and the Hawaiian community that had built up around places like the California Hotel downtown, has hardened into something close to an exodus. Today, some of the fastest growth of Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities anywhere in the country is happening not in Hawaii, but in Clark County, Nevada, and around Sacramento. The steepest decline of the Native Hawaiian population is in Honolulu itself. Sit with that for a second. The people whose ancestors are the islands, whose language and culture and name belong to that land and nowhere else, are increasingly raising their children in a desert 2,500 miles away. Not because they wanted to leave, but because the math of staying stopped working. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands, the federal program created specifically to give Native Hawaiians access to land, has a wait list, tens of thousands of families long. For many, it is not a safety net. It is a line that moves slower than the people leave. To understand that math, you have to look at what it costs just to wake up in Hawaii every morning. It's the single most expensive state in America to live in, and not by a little. Total household costs run to roughly $140,000 a year. The highest of any state by a wide distance, and the next most expensive states aren't close. Part of that is geography. Everything that arrives on these islands comes by ship, and the Jones Act, the federal law requiring that goods shipped between American ports travel on American-built, American-crewed vessels, adds a layer of cost to nearly every product that reaches Hawaiian shelves. It's a small tax on every grocery run, every hardware purchase, every truckload of building material. Small, individually, enormous in aggregate. The center of that cost is the roof over your head. In the most recent year measured, the median price of a single-family home in Hawaii hit $950,000. To put that in perspective, the typical Hawaii home now costs about 16% more than one in California, the next priciest state in the country, and close to 3 times the national median. And that is the statewide figure, dragged down by the cheaper corners of the Big Island. On Maui, the median single-family home sits near $1.2 million. On Oahu and Kauai, it is about $1.1 million. In one Kauai town, Princeville, the median home sold for $2.3 million. If you cannot buy, you rent, and that is barely a relief. Rent across the state runs around $3,000 a month. Here is the figure that really tells the story. The average Hawaii resident now spends roughly 42% of their income just on rent, and that is the highest share of any state in America. Financial advice will tell you to keep housing under a third of what you earn. An entire state is living well past that line every month with no end in sight. Now, expensive places exist all over the country. San Francisco is brutal, and Manhattan is worse. But those cities make a kind of deal with the people who live there. The rent is savage, sure, but the paychecks are enormous. You swallow the cost because the opportunity is bigger, and the salaries chase the prices upward. For a lot of people, that trade is worth it. Hawaii has broken that deal, and the reason cuts to the heart of how the islands actually make money. Hawaii runs on tourism. It's the engine of the whole economy, the thing that fills the hotels and the restaurants and the tour boats and the airport. But here's the trap almost no visitor ever sees. Tourism is a low-wage industry. The jobs it creates, the housekeepers and servers and front desk clerks and grounds crews, don't pay anywhere near enough to buy $1 million house. And because tourism is so dominant, it drags wages down across the entire economy. When the biggest employer in the state pays modestly, everyone else benchmarks against it. The University of Hawaii Economic Research Organization put it bluntly in a recent report. Hawaii's affordability crisis isn't only a story about high prices, it's a story about low wages, too. Their researchers have noted that Hawaii's mix of high costs and scant opportunity makes it, in some ways, more like West Virginia than San Francisco. This is the part that makes Hawaii genuinely unusual and genuinely dangerous for its own future. In most expensive cities, those same researchers found one force dominates. Either prices are high, but incomes are high enough to pull people in anyway, like San Francisco, or prices are low and that affordability draws people, like Las Vegas or Orlando. Hawaii is one of the rare places where both arrows point the same direction. In Honolulu and across the Maui region, prices are high and incomes are comparatively low, and both of those things are pushing people out the door at once. There's no offsetting force, no big paycheck to justify the pain. There's just the slow, grinding realization, repeated in kitchen after kitchen, that the dream and the bank statement no longer fit in the same house. And it's getting more expensive in ways that don't even show up on a listing. More than 4 in 10 Hawaii homeowners pay a monthly homeowners association fee, compared to about 1 in 4 nationally, and those fees are among the highest in the country. In Honolulu, recent listings showed a median association fee approaching $900 a month on top of the mortgage. Insurance is climbing too, with property premiums across the state jumping 13% in a single year, the steepest rise in over a decade. Each one is another small weight added to a load that was already too heavy. Then came Lahaina. When wildfire tore through the historic Maui town in August 2023 and leveled it, the tragedy was immediate and obvious. But the second disaster was quieter, and it's still unfolding. State economists warned almost right away that the survivors, the people who lost their homes, might not be able to afford to live in Lahaina once it's rebuilt, unless the zoning laws change. Think about what that means. A community can lose everything, and then watch as the rebuilt version of their own town gets priced for someone else. Land that families held for generations becomes too valuable, too contested to come home to. The fire didn't just destroy houses, it sped up a process that was already pushing locals toward the airport. Here's the part nobody likes to say out loud. A lot of this isn't an accident, and it isn't really a failure of the islands. It's a feature of how the world has decided to use them. Hawaii has become so desirable that its value to outsiders as a vacation, as a second home, as money parked in the sun, has climbed past its value as a place where ordinary people simply live. Every mainland buyer who wants a slice of paradise bids the price a little higher. Every vacation rental pulls a home off the long-term market. The islands keep getting more precious and more profitable, even as they get less and less livable for the people who were born there. That leads to a question that sounds almost absurd until you follow the numbers all the way to the end. What's a paradise with no residents? Keep this trend running long enough and you can already see the shape of it. The hotels stay full. The beaches stay beautiful. The tourists keep arriving on schedule, taking the same photos, ordering the same drinks. But the teachers, the nurses, the firefighters, the cooks, the people who actually make a place instead of a postcard, keep thinning out, replaced by a rotating cast of visitors and a scattering of part-time owners whose real lives are somewhere else. A community slowly turns into a resort. The culture becomes a performance staged for people flying in for a week. And the descendants of the islands watch it happen from a casino town in the Nevada desert. That's the kind of decline that doesn't look like Detroit. Detroit's decline left ruins you can photograph, empty factories to stand in front of, an entire geography of collapse that announces itself. Hawaii's decline hides inside the very thing that looks like success. The fuller the hotels get, the emptier the neighborhoods become. The more the world wants Hawaii, the less room there is in it for Hawaiians. The population numbers will keep looking small. A couple of thousand here, 9,000 there. Easy to wave off, easy to bury under a record tourism season and a beautiful sunset on the evening news. But every one of those numbers is a family that sat at a kitchen table, did the math, and decided that the place they love could no longer be the place they live. That's what's quietly falling apart in Hawaii. Not the scenery, not the economy on paper, but the simple, fragile thing that made it more than a destination in the first place. The people who made it home.